Hi everyone, this is Christina Barr and you're watching Black Tea News. Hello, this is Christina Barr. Welcome to Black Tea News, and today we're going to be talking about, the news of the day, which of course will be Afghanistan falling to the Taliban after our swift pullout with not a good plan, or a plan it would seem like, and after it seems like the Biden administration weren't too forthright about the situation on the ground, and the chances of Afghanistan being able to hold back the Taliban because they took over within 36 hours or something, like ridiculously fast, and they made it seem like something like that couldn't happen at that pace. And even the talking points that Nancy Pelosi and them are sending around aren't good. It's just not looking good. But that is the major news of the day that a lot of people, podcasters, commentators have been talking about. But I also want to talk about this other thing that happened over the weekend with Homeland Security issuing some weird statements about terror threats. And apparently, if you're unhappy with the government lockdowns and other stuff like that, I know they could be like looking at your online activity because you are suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Yeah, it looks like you could be a potential terrorist. And I also want to talk about critical race theory. One of the founders really exposing themselves, and the whole, the debate about is it in schools, is it not in schools? And I wrote an article last week on blacktnews.com about how, it's in schools. It's not in schools how you would maybe think it is, but it is in being taught in schools. And so this is something that they deny. There's people, Joy Reid and other commentators on the news and stuff are really trying to deny that critical race theory is being taught in schools. And she had Kimberly Crenshaw come on her program to dispel the rumors and the myths about that. But then something else happened recently that just kind of proved the point that, yes, it is being taught in schools exactly the way that I reference in my article. So if you haven't checked that out on blacktnews.com yet, what are you doing? Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different articles that I've written, like the critical race theory article that I wrote. I did share it on my social media, on my Twitter, on my Facebook, and so on. And you should share it as well. There's so many people trying to gaslight you as if this stuff isn't being taught to your kids. But it's not only in the schools, it's in the TV shows they watch, it's in the movies we watch, it's in our government, it's in our military, it's in corporate America. It really is being integrated in every single part of our life, even like in the churches and stuff. Like they want to make this like the new gospel. So you got to watch out for that. Know what to watch out for, but know that it is happening. And people trying to make it seem like it's not. They're lying to you. They're lying to you. And maybe some people don't know, and they're just kind of trying to cover for their friends. But there's a lot of people out there who are blatantly lying to you, like Miss Crenshaw. So we're going to be going over that. Make sure that you go to blacktnews.com, and if you would like to support, if you like this broadcast, if you like the website, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. You can also leave a donation via PayPal, or you can do it via Cash App. The instructions are going across the screen in a little ticker tape at the bottom. I'd also like to thank Brighter Michigan PAC for sponsoring today. I'm in their studio. They're lovely facilities. As always, if I say something that triggers you, they don't care, I don't care. It's not that sort of relationship. I'm just in the studio. God bless them. So let's jump into the news of the day. I like to start with a meme, but today I'm going to start with a TikTok that I just did about the whole situation involving Afghanistan. And the press corps is like MIA. Jen Psaki decided to take a vacation. Poof. Like Fox News reached out to her and they got like an automatic reply out of office. Reply at this crucial time when the accumulation of what's been going on for 20 years comes to a disastrous end. Mind you, Joe Biden was been in office like long enough that this is like all things he's been a part of. And so he's at Camp David, like chilling, hanging out. There's reports and stuff that people have wanted him to come back, and he's like, no, I can project strength from here via this internet Zoom call. And Jen Psaki is like, I'm on vacation, I'm doing stuff. So this is, for those of you who don't know, when I start doing TikToks, besides showing like things, clips and stuff of like videos I would make like on for YouTube and stuff, I was doing impressions of Jen Psaki, and so I went a little bit back to my roots. Haven't done as many as often, but I made a special occasion because this is a unique circumstance. So here is a TikTok I released today.
Afghanistan is falling to the Taliban and Jen Psaki's not here?
This is Jen Psaki. You're on speakerphone.
Jen, where are you?
I'm clearly on vacation.
Jen, that's crazy.
You know that I am a mother.
Oh my gosh, so many people have kids. You can't just bring up your kids to make a valid point or to make yourself seem sympathetic. Serial killers have kids, Jen!
The Biden administration holds mental health in high regard. Women need to take a break.
Speaking of women, what do you think the Taliban is going to do to women's rights?
Well,
never mind. I know you're not going to answer that. Where's Joe Biden, the president of the United States?
Well, President Biden is doing important work.
No, he's probably playing Mario Kart at Camp David. Like, why isn't he at the podium, Jen?
President Trump was reinstated on Friday, so
Biden's been the president for 7 months. This is what he wanted his whole entire life, Jen!
Not possible to know the future. Everyone who is giving us a hard time just needs to.
Jen? Are you hiding under your desk while sobbing into a pint of ice cream?
I'm gonna have to circle back with you on that.
Yeah, so there's my new video with Jen Psaki, and circle back is her, of course, her, I don't know if she likes it, but that's the thing that she says, so it's like her catchphrase. So I always try to incorporate it into every Jen Psaki impression. But yet, she's on vacation. Biden's sort of hiding out. They don't have a good strategy I guess they didn't have a good strategy, period, but they certainly don't have one as far as what they're going to say regarding this entire issue. The line about Trump being reinstated wasn't even reinstated Friday. You know, there was like I don't know where that generated the belief that Trump was going to be reinstated last week. I don't know if that was a QAnon thing or if the media generated that rumor or whatever, but some people were saying that obviously did not happen. But I saw a joke that on Twitter, and someone said that Biden's strategy should be that Trump was reinstated, so this was all his fault. Which a lot of people are trying to blame Trump because obviously he did want to pull out, but President Trump didn't want to pull out like that, and he did issue a scathing statement for Biden and the administration, and it just, Mark Levin went on a rant, maybe it was last week or the week before, about how it's crazy that so much harm can happen within 7 months. 7 months Joe Biden has been president. And I keep seeing people say that they regret voting for him, that they made a mistake. But I hope people understand that your vote is not something to take lightly, and you can't just afford to make a mistake. So people always, especially on the left, are so excited, like, oh, look at all the numbers of all the people who voted. How many people made informed choices? I don't want anyone to not, I don't want to discourage voting, but I want to say, if you're not making an informed decision, you're just someone's puppet to be used. So, if you aren't looking at both sides of things, looking up the issues, looking at the histories of people who are in office, or histories of people, like if they have an experience in the business sector, private sector or something, if you're not looking into the issues and the people to make an informed decision, maybe you should sit it out. But the Democrats don't care about they like the mass voting. They like getting as many people involved as possible because they control so much of our entertainment, of Hollywood, of the media, and big tech. And if there's a news story like the Hunter Biden stuff that got leaked with the laptop, they could block the New York Post, the oldest paper in the country, for a true story, a legitimately true story, and they can blame it on, well, it was hacked. No, it wasn't hacked. He's a crackhead who leaves his laptops places and has lost three laptops. We talked about that last week. So, yeah, they want as many people to go and vote as possible, and a lot of people made some really bad decisions. The left talks about voter intimidation as if the right is trying to keep people from voting. No, the left is trying to intimidate you into voting and making bad decisions that are not informed. They're like, turn in your ballots, mail it in, and turn it as soon as possible. Like before a debate, before both debates happen, before the don't you want to get toward election day to see what other news stories can come out, what other But they were trying to beat, that October surprise. They were trying to beat all that and keep Biden and as limited talking as possible. He flat out said, I'm not answering questions like the Supreme Court, like packing the court. He's like, I'm not going to answer that because that'll change the narrative. It'll change the conversation. It's like, well, that's an important conversation to have. That's a really important conversation to have. So anyway, a lot of people have said now, and I see it all the time. People's like, I'm so upset that you guys made me vote for this man, or you guys convinced me to vote for this man, and I'm sorry that I did it. But there's no takebacks. There's no takebacks. And he is the president until he resigns or dies or until 4 years are over. Or he's impeached. And that's the reality of your vote, the consequences of those actions. So before I jump into the critical race theory stuff, I do want to encourage you guys to check out material at the website, like different merchandise, like this goat hoodie I got on. I do love it. You can get that. You can get that in multiple colors at the website. It is super comfy. I love this thing to pieces. You can get the Denounce White Supremacy, Defeat Joe Biden shirt with a list of his atrocities on the back. This shirt with all the accomplishments of Trump. Gosh, I wish he was the president right now. I really do, just for lots of reasons. So many reasons. But there's some of his accomplishments. You can get a shirt with all that stuff on it. And You Are Not That Special. I love that. Also comes in mugs. And you can also get stuff with, the Black T logo on it. So, okay, let's talk about critical race theory. So, again, lots of people try to gaslight you and get you to believe that it's not being taught in schools, that the parents are over-exaggerating, that Republicans are absolutely lying about it, which isn't true. And Republicans are trying to ban it. And then Democrats are mad that they're banning it. And then you have teachers unions that are vowing to defend it. And you get teachers angry because they can't teach it and that it's being banned. So it's like, is it there or is it not there? Because you're kind of making it seem like you're angry that you can't teach it anymore. But I could understand maybe if you just thought they were doing, I don't know. I guess I don't understand. Maybe the principle of the matter, but a lot of people know that it is secretly being taught in schools. And is it being taught in a way that they want children to understand all the tenets of it, that all the backgrounds and the laws and all sorts of things that they could cite Kimberly Crenshaw and Derek Bell word for word, that's not what the purpose of teaching it in schools are. So in an article I wrote on blacktnews.com, I just kind of laid out, if you're a Christian and you're teaching, you want to convert the people around you in your life to being a Christian because you believe that Jesus is the truth, that he's the way, that he can deliver people. You want expose other people to that and to convert them, right? So if you are very knowledgeable, do you go to your agnostic friends and family, especially let's say your high school age or something, or middle school age? Is it your goal to just come at them super preachy, or is it your goal to people who don't ascribe to that worldview? Would you do that, or would you act a little more covertly? Would you come in talking about first church history? Would you be talking about the translations of the Greek? Would you be doing any of that, giving like histories of all the different like authors of Psalm and who wrote which book? And would you be doing all that? Would your goal be to make them an astute theologian, or would your goal to be to just make them a disciple of Christ? Wouldn't your goal be to ease them in, to kind of be an example and throw in a Bible example in life or story when it was relevant here and there? Like, it's a slow burn, right? It's normally a slow burn to someone who doesn't ascribe to your that worldview, right? So with critical race theory, and they write it about in critical race theory and introduction, they talk about how, I mean, they basically want to change the world. So if you have a goal of changing the world, would you wait for people to get into college to do that? Would change the whole world? You just want to wait on the chance that they might go to law school and they might take your course. Would you do that if you're someone who wants to change the world and you know that your ideology requires activism? No, you probably wouldn't wait for that child to grow up and go to law school, to even go to college. Why would you even wait for them to get into high school? Why would you limit it to only school? So they don't want you, it's not that they want you to be so educated and studied in critical race theory. They want you to believe in the ideas, believe in the principles, and to go and evangelize it yourself. As a matter of fact, people on the left, they like all their language barriers and stuff and new terms that they come up with for language. But usually it's just a distraction from like real world truths. Like they can come up with all these things for transgenderism and stuff to just confuse you and try to convince you that a man is a man and a woman isn't a woman. You know, that language is sort of their weapon, but they really don't want you to be. So they want to make you feel stupid without you being educated. It's kind of like how they work. It's kind of like how they work. They need you to not really be informed. They need you to be indoctrinated, not a critical thinker, is how they work. So they need you to buy into the emotionalism of everything. They don't need you to critically think about it. I mean, for example, when you see any sort of disparity, like these people assume the assumption is racism instead of you trying to think critically like, well, maybe this happened because of individual actions with this group, how they're culturally and this and that. And no, it's got to be racism. Like they're against like neutrality in the law, and I explained some other things in the article. I encourage you to go read it. But Crenshaw, Joy Reid is on MSNBC. She's someone who's like really, really into defending critical race theory and criticizing other people who are pointing it out. So she had Kimberly Crenshaw, who's one of the people who's written extensive things on it. She's accredited for being, one of the founders of it. So she came on the show. It's so funny because they had a pretty big block, I guess, talking about it. And so Joy Reid's just like, oh my gosh, these people are so dumb. Republicans are so dumb. These, they believe it's Marxist and all this kind of other stuff. So we're going to bring on Ms. Crenshaw to talk about it. And she's like, I don't want to look stupid. And I hate asking stupid questions because I don't want you to think I'm stupid. I don't want you to think I'm stupid. And she's like, first of all, is it Marxism? That's a simple yes or no question, right? Ms. Crenshaw does not give her a yes or no answer. She goes on to explain what critical race theory is. Does she explain that it is not Marxism? No. And as a matter of fact, at the end of the conversation, she brings up how people keep relaying it to Marxism as a political talking point, and Crenshaw does not refute that either. So I think it's really, really strange. Well, it's not strange if you know that it is connected to Marxism. It's not strange, but if it's bad, what? I don't know. Why aren't these people? They lie about other things. Why aren't they lying about the association with Marxism? There's other people who are really coy or straight up kind of lie about the connection to Marxism. But I found it strange that she didn't say, no, it's not Marxism, or it's more complex than that. I mean, she just like kind of ignored that and explained the origins of it, and then just ignored that when Joy tried to say, well, they're trying to say it's Marxism, and she didn't go, no, it's not Marxism, or they don't go like, oh, Marxism, that's a terrible thing. That's a terrible. They don't say things like that. They don't say things like that. And the deeper I go into conversation with people who really, really defend critical race theory, I get the impression that they don't think that Marxism is too bad, that communism is too bad. So maybe that's the reason there, but it is really funny. She's like, I don't want to seem stupid and ask you stupid questions, but is it Marxism? Like, I'm not going to answer that question. I'm going to just answer this question the way that I want to answer it. So after she dodges that and she doesn't denounce Marxism, she doesn't say that critical race theory is not Marxism. She just explains thoroughly her explanation of what it is or how it started, gave a history. And so then Joy talks about it being in schools. And so I'm going to play this clip of them denying that it's in schools.
So is critical race theory, is there a K through 12 curriculum that right now is being taught? I'm sorry, I know it's a dumb question, but is there a K through 12 curriculum on critical race theory that's being taught in schools around this country?
Well, look, Joy, if it was news to most Americans that critical race theory was in K through 12, it was news to me too. I'm one of the co-authors of one of the few books on critical race theory. I think I would know if we were being taught in K through 12. I mean, basically, critical race theory, classic critical race theory is a law school course, and it's really, not taught as widely as I would hope it would. Yeah. But here's the deal. This is not about whether anything called critical race theory is in K through 12. What they're calling critical race theory doesn't exist anyway. It is a backlash effort to reverse the racial reckoning unlike any we've seen in our lifetime. And as you pointed out at the beginning, they can't say, we're for racism. They can't say Derek Chauvin should have killed George Floyd with his hand in his pocket, looking like he was completely without a care in the world. They couldn't say that. So they looked around and found a strange sounding theory that they could put all of the grievances and resentments in and mobilize people around this boogeyman. And if our side can't really understand what's going on, it's going to work. It's worked in the past. It worked to end Reconstruction, and it can work to end this reckoning too.
So she thinks the people who are against critical race theory and are speaking out against it are racist, that they're genuine racists, and this is just sort of their pet project. It's not that they're concerned about their kids, and here's the thing where I just hate sometimes about how they would just assume such an evil thing on people. Like, maybe they're just wrong about critical race theory, and they're not wrong, but you could at least just assume maybe they don't understand it, and maybe they're just confused. But you have to say that they're racist, and that's why they're against it, not because they've heard bad things about it and they're confused about what it is and they're concerned and they're just misconstruing everything. You assume that they're racist and they're terrible, and instead of saying like, oh, it's good that Chauvin killed George Floyd, like what? They have to go after critical race theory because that's their outlet, because they can't just be blatantly racist in these other ways that would be so absolutely tragic Like, that doesn't make any sense. So this is the person who created it, helped to create it. And you see they have such a hyper political racist worldview that assumes such blatant racism on the opposition. So critical race theory, it's a worldview, it's a lens. So considering the sort of lens that that woman has, do you want that anywhere near your kids in high school or even college? Even college, even if you were at college, would you want someone like that teaching your kid, instilling any sort of principles into your child? By the way, she is like big on intersectionality. That's her too. So this is the type of person who's been instilling this madness into your kids. The origin story right there. Someone who just assumes that people are so racist. These parents are so racist. These Republicans are so racist that they had to have a project that they could go after because they couldn't be blatantly racist and celebrate Derek Chauvin killing George Floyd. That's crazy. And it's especially crazy because they didn't find any racism even in the case. Everyone saw that and reacted so badly when they saw that tape. They were disgusted. Like, I couldn't even like really watch it. Like, my sister called me. She's like, oh my, it was so sick as she was watching it. Even as I saw the body cam that showed like a different kind of story with him resisting, it was still sickening to watch, knowing how he was knowing what was going to happen to him. No one was celebrating that it was happening, nothing mainstream or anything. Like, the nation was in shock and horror. There are people who aren't like glad about the outcome because they feel that justice wasn't quite served with all the convictions, but that's an entirely different conversation. She's alleging that these people would be happy about that. So these blatantly racist people come up with an ideology, a worldview, a lens, and they want to defend it. They want to defend it so hard. But that sort of thinking is indefensible. Unless you're Joy Reid. They assume such terrible things about you. You concerned parent who don't want your children to ascribe any sort of malice toward another human being for the color of their skin? Or how about even their political affiliation? How about that? If we could just get to know each other and just try to understand, like, why do you have this view? Why do you have this view? I had a conversation on TikTok because someone tried to say I wasn't a Christian or try to doubt my Christianity because I supported Donald Trump. And I like opened up a Bible. I'm like, oh, it doesn't say anywhere that if you support someone that you're not a Christian. And I know there's Republicans or conservatives who will say if you're a Democrat you can't be a Christian. I would never say something like that because that just assumes so much about a person. Maybe they have a different take on the issues, or they don't understand it the way that you understand it, or they interpret it some kind of other way. And I'm not talking about misinterpreting the Bible. I'm just talking about how they see politics or something. You could have a conversation with someone and see how they got to their conclusions and how much the Bible or Christianity plays into how they vote or whatever. But to just assume and say like a blanket thing like they're not Christian because they vote a certain way, I would never say that. Now I would argue politics till the sun comes down with them, but I would never just assume something like that, and I would never just say something like it. I know people do say it on the right. I don't like it, and I don't say that, and I can at least speak for me. So when people just ascribe so much intention into someone because of who they vote for, that's just madness. So if we could just have conversations with people and be respectful to one another and try to get to know each other and understand each other and try to live in a colorblind world, not saying that I don't see that you're white or I don't see that you're Asian or you don't see that I'm black, but it doesn't mean anything about who we are. It can mean a lot historically about where we've come from, but it doesn't mean anything about who we are. There's so much about me that is so unique to me. I have an extraordinarily unique personality. I took one of those tests of where it's like NFJ and T or whatever. I don't remember the letter acronym, but I think it maybe is the archetype. Architect maybe is maybe it. And I think it's my personality is like 0.4% or of the population or something. Like it's even like way less than women or something. And plus experiences and like I'm just a really unique individual, period. There's just a lot you can't assume by looking at me. And a lot of people assume things when they do look at me. Like I should be a Democrat. And when they see that I'm not, they want to call me a traitor or something like that. Which is disgusting. But if you could get to know me, you'd understand it really makes a lot of sense with my upbringing, with my beliefs, and so on. Certainly not doing a tap dance. If you got to know me, people don't want to do that. Because if you have conversations and you start thinking critically, you're not going to vote the way that they want you to vote. You're not going to vote the way they want you to vote. People like Miss Crenshaw and the left. So this person who did not denounce Marxism, who did not say that what she teaches is not Marxism, she had the floor, she had the opportunity, and she did not deny that. She passed the ball. She passed the ball on that one. Totally dodged it like Neo in the Matrix. So let's go on, because she kind of outed herself later about this. So we have this forum on critical race theory, school summer. Forbidden knowledge fights back, unleashing the transformative power of critical race theory. And oh my gosh, look at the people who are there. Kimberly Crenshaw, huh? That's interesting. That's interesting. Teaching truth to power, CRT in public education. So I'm going to just read a little bit in this underline. In this channel, we will learn directly from classroom educators and education justice leaders how they have incorporated CRT insights, not the theory itself, into high school social studies, history, and civics classrooms. So, just as she said, people that are teaching it, it's not quite the same, but they're teaching what? Insights? Critical race theory insights are being taught. What did I say? What did I say? So again, if you're just jumping on, I have an article on blacktnews.com about critical race theory. No, they are not teaching your kids word for word all the teachings of Miss Crenshaw, of Derek Bell, who was like against integration, by the way. They're not teaching that word for word, all the history going in and then explaining to everyone how it is related to Marxism. They're not doing that. They don't want to do that. Do they want your kids and everyone else to evangelize the sort of things that are taught, the beliefs, a part of that system? Absolutely. 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 So please, we call it critical race theory insights. It's not the theory itself, it's just the insights. It's just the little sprinkles on top of the critical race theory. So yes, they are teaching it just not even just in their schools, in the military, in your where you work. A lot of places, there's people who I know in my life, they keep telling me about different trainings that they have. I keep saying, like, let me write a letter. Let me write a letter for you. You can send it to HR. I'll do it. I'll absolutely do it for you. But it's definitely in corporate America, and it's definitely in the TV shows you watch. Cartoon Network did a big like commercials like "Don't see color." It's bad to see color. And the little black girl's like, the white girl's like, I see that you're treated differently. And the black, or maybe it's just a black girl who's like, yeah, I'm treated differently because I'm black. Like, how old is you? But you just have that insight in the world that you're treated so terribly because you're black. Gosh, I don't know how old that child was, but it's just like they really, 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 really want the world to be racist. They want the world. They believe the world is racist. But the racists are the ones trying to fix racism by making everything more racist. And what is the goal of that? Well, we don't quite have the system of different class differences that I guess communism and Marxism and stuff would need. But we do have a particular history with racial divisions. So that's what they use. I've talked about this book before. This book, Communism and Common Sense. There's another C. There's another one by Manning Johnson. And Color, Communism, and Common Sense. That's the name of the book by Manning Johnson. He used to be a communist. Then he defected and was an informant for the U.S. government. And his book is pretty insightful. And basically, the communists would use legitimate grievances that black people would have. They would get them to be communists, but they'd always have these white handlers because at the end of the day, no matter what solution that they had, it could not supersede, like helping the black community could not supersede the end goals and games of communism. And if they had to destroy you, they had a plan in place. If they needed to do that. It was always about uplifting communism. So it is always interesting to me how many of these super black activists are okay with being a Marxist. Like the people associated with Black Lives Matter, Patrisse Cullors and the other co-founders, they're trained Marxists in their own words. It's really interesting. The black activists who associate with that stuff and has ties to those things, especially Black Lives Matter, because a lot of their tenets and stuff is stuff that you can see relating back to like Marxism and stuff. I mean, they wanted to destroy the nuclear family, all kinds of other stuff. So, yeah, it's really creepy. But there you have it. They're not teaching your kids critical race theory, just incorporating the insights into the social studies classes and all kinds of other stuff. It's just the insights. It's just the insights. Again, last time I mentioned the article, it does briefly go over 4 tenets of critical race theory in the article itself. It's a good little breakdown. I mean, of course, you could always do more reading on it. I plan to do a specific video on it, but it's something that you can share with people. And it does have some real world examples of people acting out on critical race theory. And even though we're learning about it right now, it's been involved in our way of life for a minute, for a hot minute. So let's move on. Let's move on. So the U.S. government. So at a time where terrorism could possibly be back on the rise because we have the Taliban taking over Afghanistan, accumulating all sorts of power right now. Our government is looking at domestic terrorism in an interesting way. So this was a report that came out this weekend.
A new terror alert has been issued by Homeland Security tonight. Pete Williams is here. Pete, what do we know about this?
Well, DHS says this new terrorism advisory is not based on any actual threats or plots, but it says there's a rise in anti-government rhetoric. Some of it is opposition to COVID public health rules like mask and vaccine measures. Some calls for violent action are based on claims of election fraud or a belief that Donald Trump can be reinstated. And DHS says the coming 20th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks and religious holidays later this year could be catalysts for violence. The last terror advisory was issued in May. It expired today. This new one says domestic extremism remains a threat priority, Lester.
All right, Pete, thank you.
Oh, okay. So there's nothing specific on the horizon that you need to look out for. But we're just going to look out for it anyway. People who are upset about COVID restrictions and lockdowns and mandates, all those things, because there's people who could be upset about it. Those people could be potential terrorists. Or maybe they're just upset because we have government officials acting tyrannical and trying to rule us without the consent of the governed, which is very important, very vital for a country. Yeah, you got these tyrannical people not even following their own lockdown measures. And they've done a lot of harm to the country in the past, year and a half. And now they're talking about doing it all over again. Even though the threat is nowhere near the levels that it was during the time when they started all this. But they're getting worse. Like, mandating that they can put something in your body, that is, if someone's going to stand up for something, it's got to be that. And I know some people are for forced vaccinations. I am not, and I'm not against vaccinations, but I'm so against forced vaccinations. But people upset about that could be a terrorist. Could be a terrorist. And they're concerned that something could pop off during religious holidays. What do you think? We're just gonna go ham on Christmas or Hanukkah? What are you expecting? What are you expecting? And so that when people saw the screenshots, and I did a TikTok about it, and people are like, "This can't be real," and they looked up like, "Oh my gosh, it is real." Yes, it's real. Yes, it's real. Homeland Security put out a bulletin for a national terrorism advisory system. Said all kind of troubling things, but it says, how are we responding? DHS will continue to identify and evaluate calls for violence, including online activity associated with the spread of disinformation, conspiracy theories, and false narratives by known or suspected threat actors, and provide updated information as necessary. So here's a question. Who decides what a false narrative is? Who decides what's disinformation and conspiracy theories? Because there's I don't know, people were saying that the Wuhan lab thing was a conspiracy and disinformation, misinformation, whatever, and that they were stopping that kind of talk and information from getting out. A lot of things that they tried to stop because they said it was harmful or not true turned out to be real. But who decides what a false narrative is? A false narrative something like, I don't know, CNN making up a story about the president of the United States being afraid of stairs? Would it be something like he fed the koi fish wrong? Would it be something like him just making up stories about him being sick, or putting out there? What about the false narrative, the blatant lie about him calling neo-Nazis very fine people when he specifically denounced them? Is that a false narrative? Is that a false narrative? Who gets to determine these things? Because if it's the government, I'm concerned. And we certainly do not have an objective sort of government right now. They're coming to take you away, haha. They're coming to take you away, ho ho, hee hee, haha. It's really real. Opposition to COVID measures listed as a bullet point for potential terror threats. Claims of election fraud. Belief Trump can be reinstated. Claims of election fraud. There's always some fraud every election. People have been prosecuted for it. The level of to which it happened is the debate. But there's a lot of people who believe it's a lot. There's a lot of people who believe that votes were switched. There's people who just believe that obviously some laws weren't followed, and actually courts ruled on other things after the fact that that's true. You can debate to the degree of it. But a lot of people want election integrity, and they're going to keep talking about it until they see some positive action about it. And that doesn't make them terrorists. Are there some people out there who believe some goofy things? Sure. Still doesn't make them terrorists. But you know what? It's so funny to me that the government can just get together and they can make sure that there's a COVID label in Facebook, on TikTok, and in YouTube, all these social media platforms or whatever, that they could take down information, they can flag it for false information. They could do all these things. But y'all can't do something about kitty porn on the internet. Y'all can't do something about all the sex trafficking. I know that was a priority for Trump, but it's still a rampant issue. And a lot of people associated, like in the porn industry, are sex trafficked. But there is a lot of kitty porn out there. Or y'all could try a little harder when people try to warn y'all that there could be some kind of incident. You know, with a mass pew-pew. Like the Broward County. I just think there's other things you guys should be more concerned about than people who tweet things about the election, or people who don't want their child to wear a mask all day in school, or don't want their child to have a mandate to go to the movies or something like that. We live in a wacky world right now. Wacky. Yeah, but I thought you guys should know. And it's possible. It's possible that we could all be in Gitmo together. But don't worry. Biden and Obama made sure to clear it out of Taliban officials. So we don't have to share the cells with them. Because they're already back in Afghanistan, ruling the country. With that, let's go to our next headline that I wanted to cover before we call it a day. A lot of people obviously are talking about the Taliban taking over Afghanistan and the massive, quick, unplanned, it seems, pullout that we had, and which is really interesting because Joe Biden, he had a presser not too long ago, and he assured the people that it would not be a hot mess, and obviously it is a hot mess.
Is a Taliban takeover of Afghanistan now inevitable?
No, it is not. Because you have the Afghan troops have 300,000 well equipped as any army in the world, and an air force against something like 75,000 Taliban. It is not inevitable.
Mr. President, thank you very much. Your own intelligence community has assessed that the Afghan government will likely collapse.
That is not true.
Can you please clarify what they have told you about whether that will happen or not?
That is not true. They did not reach that conclusion.
So what is the level of confidence that they have that it will not collapse?
The Afghan government and leadership has to come together. They clearly have the capacity to sustain the government in place.
And do you see any parallels between this withdrawal and what happened in Vietnam, with some people feeling...
None whatsoever. Zero. What you had entire brigades breaking through the gates of our embassy. 6, if I'm not mistaken. The Taliban is not the North Vietnamese army. They're not remotely comparable in terms of capability. there's going to be no circumstance where you see people being lifted off the roof of a embassy of the United States from Afghanistan. It is not at all comfortable. So the question now is, where do they go from here? That the jury is still out. But the likelihood there's going to be the Taliban overrunning everything and owning the whole country is highly unlikely.
So Trump did issue a statement about Biden. It is time for Joe Biden to resign in disgrace for what he's allowed to happen to Afghanistan, along with tremendous surge in COVID, the border catastrophe, the destruction of energy independence, and our crippled economy. It shouldn't be a big deal because he wasn't elected legitimately in the first place. It's pretty funny. So Biden said it wouldn't be like what happened at Vietnam, which here's a little tidbit of information. Joe Biden has been in office so long. He was in office when that happened. So here's a comparison for the events. He said, it's not going to be like what happened here at Vietnam with choppers being on the embassy just trying to get people out. And there's a comparison with our embassy and trying to get people out. So it's my gosh, it's so ridiculous. He's like doing the opposite of he's like ironic future telling, I guess. Like the opposite is happening, the things that he said. It's whatever Joe Biden says, his guarantees, the opposite is guaranteed to happen in the future. The opposite is guaranteed to happen. So here's a little bit of news of what has been happening. I think it's a Sky News, a report from them.
Yes, we know that the embassy now, this $800 million building that was only built 5 years ago, the biggest embassy that the United States has, that has now been abandoned. And all the embassy staff are at the airport, where this morning there are some very troubling scenes where we can see quite clearly the desperate attempt, literally, to get out of the country. That's a civilian plane there on the tarmac. There are a number of them there. As we understand it, the flights have been cancelled, the civilian flights. So that plane we don't think is going anywhere, but there is an attempt by everyone who's at the airport to be able to get on board that plane. The military flights, which have been coming in thick and fast over the course of the past 48 hours or so, they are supposed only to be able to take out military and diplomatic staff and not civilians. So quite how this is going to unfold over the course of the next 24 hours, it's hard to tell, but they are going to be very, very troubling pictures.
So obviously all of this is bad. All of this is bad. We have allies and who are not going to get out, who are being killed right now. I saw a report that I think it was the Telegraph reported that the UK is just going to open up their borders for people fleeing from the Taliban, which anybody could basically come over saying that they're from Afghanistan, so that doesn't seem like a great plan. Pakistan, some of you may know that my church works with people in Pakistan, and we ministered over Skype, and they go in to villages, unchurched villages, and we set up a projector. And my dad, he ministers to people, and we have a very high conversion rate of people who will convert from Islam to Christians, and then we filter them into other churches and stuff. They're concerned about what's happening. Pakistan's right next to them. And this does affect them. Obviously, there's a lot of women who are concerned about what will happen. There's a lot of, first of all, you have to be grateful to live in the United States. That something like this isn't happening, or you would think wouldn't happen. And of course, Afghanistan isn't the same as the United States, but we've been basically like nation building over there for a long time. And it's just 20 years, so things are about to be radically different. We're for these people in an instant. In an instant. After President Biden assured that this wasn't going to happen. So now there's talking points going around, Nancy Pelosi sending around to people, and they're saying, well, it was a possibility this could happen. It wasn't inevitable, but it's a possibility. It was a possibility. So they're, I know, trying to say it wasn't an intelligence failure because it was always a possibility, not an inevitability. I don't know how that's going to make things better. At all. At all. And they're trying to also spin it like, well, we couldn't have been there forever. No, I guess I don't see why you couldn't have a little bit of amount of people there, enough that this wouldn't have happened like this. I mean, you had the Taliban come in and the president has run away. You got people like in the palace just chilling. Our guns, our helicopters. Like Taliban just took that stuff. Our taxpayer dollars, like our weapons and stuff, was like in their hands. Or in their hands. So Liz Cheney said, which I know a lot of you are probably like, neocon, because I just invoked her name. But she said, this isn't the way that you end a war, this is the way you start one. So I think she's correct, and I'm concerned if this is intentional or not intentional now. Because we're just assuring that there's going to be more issues in the future. I was listening to Ben Shapiro's take on all this earlier, and he was talking about both sides of the aisle sort of failing in this. That Bush originally should have, I mean, it was the war on terror. We're going on to stop terror before it happens here. And America was pretty signed on to that. Like, people got sick of it after a while, for sure. But Bush went around, he made his case, and people were okay with it. A lot of people signed up to be part of the effort. I know people who were in Afghanistan, who lost friends in Afghanistan, who have a lot of really raw emotions right now. Really raw emotions. But the message was to go fight terror. And the expectation wasn't to nation build. And perhaps if that needed to be the thing that was going to happen, to make the case that some troops will have to be there to keep, helping spread democracy or whatever. But that wasn't like the original kind of pitch that they made. And I guess that's just something that happened. No one really has made that pitch, I think. And Obama said he was going to get out, didn't realize politically that was a dumb thing to do. But Biden is always wrong about foreign policy, so even was against him going after Osama bin Laden. So Biden is always wrong on these things. And he's the commander in chief right now, and so Trump, of course, wanted to get out, and so people are saying, well, Trump wanted to get out, and he had a date, he wanted to be out in May, and so Trump is criticizing Biden, saying that they didn't go by the plan that was set, and people are saying Trump wouldn't have pulled out in this manner, or that the Taliban wouldn't have moved in the way that they moved in because Biden is weak and Trump wasn't weak. Whatever the case was, Trump did not get reelected. Or Trump is not the president right now. Biden is the president, and they pulled the trigger in the way that they did, and the Taliban has taken over Afghanistan, and those are the facts of the matter. And Biden cannot spend the next 4 years of his presidency, and obviously he's not going to make it to 8, but going back over, trying to blame Trump for everything. And that was one thing that was so annoying about the Obama administration. And I don't really like when any politician really gets up and be like, I inherited, like, no, you didn't inherit, you, like, technically, I guess, but you campaigned to take it over and to fix the problems. That's what you came in to do. So, like, you can just look forward and assess the situation and fix it. That's what your job is. But for people who don't recall, or just don't remember, because maybe I got a younger audience or whoever, but I remember when it was like the week of the election, like the day before, I was in the grocery store. I'm talking about 2016. I was in the grocery store and they were talking about the economy still. And someone was like, yeah, the economy, I know that, it's bad right now. It's not that great. But, because of Bush, and I just snapped. I was like, it's been 8 years. It's been 8 years and you still blaming Bush? And they're just like taken aback because I randomly said something to a stranger at the grocery store. But it's true. So many people were still blaming Bush. That's not the sign that we were in a good position. If people are still blaming the predecessor from 8 years ago to where we were at that moment, we're talking about the week of the election, like the day before. People still blaming Bush because apparently Obama did not have that positive of an impact that can make you just forget how bad things were. I think we had such kind of a good turnaround in the Trump years that a lot of people forgot how high gas used to be. We are remembering or we are returning to how that was. I heard in California gas is like $5. It's like $3.39 by my house. Gas. That sucks. It does. These people, they want you to go electric, so I don't think they don't want the heat, but they definitely want the outcome of you not having the cars that you have right now. And of course they all have like friends and lobbyists and involved in all that kind of stuff too. So it's not just because of they care about the environment so much. They care about money, and there's deals and all sorts of things involved in your life being miserable so theirs can be better. But back to the statement that Trump made about Biden, and again that joke he doesn't think it's a joke, but because he wasn't, it shouldn't be that big of a deal of him stepping down because he wasn't legitimately elected in the first place. I love that Trump pettiness. But he said it's time for Joe Biden to resign in disgrace for what he's allowed to happen to Afghanistan. Again, you can say, well, Trump wanted to pull out. I don't think Trump would have pulled out the way that happened. To just kind of toss everyone to the wind. I don't think that would have happened like that. Who knows if he still would have actually pulled out, because obviously there are people who were against that, but Biden did a doozy, man. He said, along with a tremendous surge in COVID, I don't think the surge is as bad as what the media really wants you to believe right now. But they are injecting a lot of fear porn in the world, for sure. For measures of control. And they really did botch the messaging with COVID before he was president, after he was president, and a lot of that is on his shoulders for sure. Trump should have got rid of Fauci, though. I know people didn't want him to. They were making it seem like they would have made it seem like Trump is just so anti-science and stuff, which they were doing that anyway. They were lying and saying that he said to drink bleach, so he should have just did that. So Trump was perfect in that regard. The border catastrophe, that is so on Biden. It's ridiculous. It's so on Biden. You can't tell me that some of this stuff isn't on purpose. Can someone be that incompetent to do so many bad things in 7 months? The destruction of our energy independence and our crippled economy. The decisions with the economy is just outrageous. Like, Biden could have really just come and did nothing and succeeded. Like, nothing. Could have just, like, his campaign, he could have just been Basement Joe. Like, he didn't need to do all the things that he was doing. Like, all these executive orders that came in, stopping, like, Keystone, and keep signing, for rent, for people not to have to pay their mortgages and renters fees and all that. Like, that's obviously bad. They keep spending and spending and spending, extending the unemployment benefits so far, so now people won't work. That is obviously not good. We got inflation. There's so much going on that you could lay at Biden's feet, and we should have just like a crazy bounce back with the economy because we were in an artificial depression, and the bounce back should have been incredible, and we're not there. We're not there, and there's some very obvious things that they did wrong with the border crisis, with the economy, with the messaging, with COVID, and it doesn't make any sense at all. Like, if he was a crackhead like his son, maybe it would make sense, because you go, well, he's a crackhead, so Biden's not a crackhead, we assume. So how could so many things be so wrong? How could you make all these mistakes? Unless they're not mistakes. But I should go before I sound like a conspiracy theorist and have Homeland Security knocking at my door so they can put me in Guantanamo Bay. So anyway, I guess that's the show for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please consider going to blacktnews.com if you enjoyed this broadcast and you want to see continue and supporting. You can do so by PayPal. You can do so by Cash App with the ticker tape that's going at the bottom there. Obviously, you can do it that way. Or you can go to blacktnews.com/donate. Please check out that article that I wrote about critical race theory and spread that around. It's very, very important that people understand what people are doing, how they are teaching it in your schools, and how it is everywhere right now. It's in what you watch, it's in our military, it's in your corporations. And people need to understand the methods to their evil. And critical race theory, it's evil. It certainly is evil. So please share those articles, and please consider buying some merchandise. I love this hoodie. It's so comfortable, and it's cool, right? In case you don't know what GOAT is, that is greatest of all time. So it's got Washington, Lincoln, Reagan, and Trump on it. So you can get that hoodie and other stuff on the site. I'm not the victim you're looking for. This really cool Trump shirt, and I got this cool Be Better Not Bitter shirt. You can get stuff with the Black T logo on it. The Constitution is a glorious liberty document. You are not that special. I adore that. And you can also get those in these cute mugs. You can give that to someone. But yeah, go check out the merchandise on blacktnews.com and share the content there. Make sure that you are liking the page on Facebook, that you are getting notifications, that you are subscribed on YouTube, that you are hitting the notification bells so you know when I'm going live and so on. And make sure that you're following me on TikTok. I play one of my TikToks early when I first started the show. That I am very active on TikTok. That is where I am the most active actually right now with my social media platform. So, and that's where I have the biggest reach actually, on my TikTok. But go ahead and check out my TikToks. And I'm at Black T News across all social media platform, like the major ones, like Facebook, YouTube, on TikTok. The only one that is different is my Twitter, and my Twitter is at @TrueBlackT. So thank you guys for being part of the broadcast. Make sure that you're sharing. I appreciate everything that you guys are doing. I appreciate you sharing to people, you suggesting that you're liking, leaving nice comments, and I super appreciate people who donate. I really appreciate that. And I'll see you guys next time.